Hey, before we get into this, a lot of people were affected by the Hurricane Helene that kind of ripped through the southeastern part of the United States from Florida to Georgia to Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, and so many. A lot of destruction, a lot of people affected, a lot of breweries affected. And I feel like it's right to say something about that and tell you that if you have the ability to help, please make a donation to the American Red Cross or to World Central Kitchen. They are doing amazing things to try to help the folks that have been affected by that giant storm. So thank you, and anything that you can help is greatly appreciated by those people. Coffee is a big part of my day. Not only does it help me get through the morning, but I just really love good coffee. Trade is a subscription service that brings great coffee from indie roasters all over the country right to your door. Tell Trade what you like typically. Single origins, blends, dark or light roasts, or even how you make your coffee, and they'll recommend the right beans for you. Or you can choose from over 450 different coffees and build your own queue. Then you select how often you'd like your coffee delivered, whether that be 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. Shipping's always free. If you find that you have too many beans and you need to skip a delivery, you can do that. Running out sooner than you think and need an order sooner, you can do that as well. No charge. I've done it myself a couple times. It's great to know that I have that flexibility. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade and get started with Trade and enjoy 30% off your first month. That's unitedwedrink.com/trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mikey Revich. I'm here doing this intro by myself because we have a guest. Yes, we do. I'm super excited for this one. I'm excited anytime we have a guest. What am I talking about? I'm not trying to put down any of our past guests, except for that one. You know who you are. We shall not speak of you ever again. But we are joined by Luis Brignoni today. If you are not familiar with him, I would call him an OG, a godfather even, of the beer scene in Miami. He was a co-founder of Wynwood Brewing along with his dad, affectionately named Pops. And now he works for the Tank Brewing, also in Miami, as the CEO. You might be thinking to yourself, wait, how is the co-founder of Wynwood, a company that still exists? I see La Rubia. How is he not with them anymore? Well, we're going to get into talking about that. He has quite a crazy journey through the beer world, and why waste any more time? Let's just get into talking with Luis.
BJ and the Bear.
I was going to go with Smokey the Bear, but BJ and the Bear is way better.
Luis, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate the invite. So
you said to me when we did a little briefing yesterday that you're not drinking tonight because you're on antibiotics. So you are a stronger man than probably most of us who would be like, yeah, I could have one. So kudos to you for.
Yeah, no, I had a follow up with my doctor today. He's like, hey, you got 3 days in antibiotics, so don't drink. I'm like, fuck, all right. Don't we curse in this show, by the way? Is that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
All right, so I'll make sure.
I think it's a requirement, actually.
We tend to target this show about drinking and weed towards children. So
Let's try to keep
It's
it PG.
it's one of its kind, and probably would be the last of its kind. Um, so, man, I've known you for probably about 11 or 12 years at this point. I met you right before you were in the process of opening Wynwood. And I was at the brewery that we never name on the show. And
Okay.
and I
Mention
think
a fuck ton, but never name.
we do. That's true. But
It's a very nebulous rule. It comes in, it comes out, it does its own thing.
and if I remember, I'll bleep it in the editing. But Kevin, were you working with us there when like they were getting going and Luis
I'm
and Pops would come up and visit?
I'm not sure if I was still at Funky at the very beginning. I know
Yep.
that I came down. I know that I came down the first time I visited Wynwood's tap room was with that crew from that brewery that we've never named before. That was the first time I actually went down there. Was with all of us. Went down as a whole like crew. We took a day off or whatever it was. But no, I think I was still at Funky when it was in the planning stages. So I think that's the
Okay.
first time I met Luis.
Correct. Yeah, I remember we met when you were still with Funky. But yeah, actually, I remember that day y'all came down too with a brewery that should not be named. And came and hang out. Yeah, and you guys hit the neighborhood too. That was cool. That was a good time.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, good
So
old days.
why don't you give people a little bit of a background on opening up Wynwood and like because you guys were pretty much like OG. You were OGs of the Wynwood neighborhood. And I would even dare say like Miami in general for
But
brewing.
Florida, I mean, you were really early adopters in production beer in the state in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Yeah, it was Miami was interesting to open up a brewery. I'm not sure I'd do it again, but yeah. So
None
we,
of us would.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, avid home brewer for a long time, and I decided to take the leap and open up a brewery in Wynwood. That was in 2011. Is when we first started, and took a couple years to open. We opened in 2013. I remember the first batch was in August, and we distributed through Brown, which we all distributed at the time
Yeah.
with. First batch came out in September. Taproom opened in December. And yeah, it was a fun time to try to open up and try to teach people in the city and in the county what a brewery was. They were very clueless. I remember I called the first time to see if the location was good for a brewery, and they said no because it's illegal to distilled hops. And I was like, okay, great, because I mean, we're not just doing any distillation. So I realized at that point I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a interesting hill to climb. Um, but I mean, throughout the process, you find some great people too that like the project and that are willing to help out. So, um, you know, it wasn't. It was. I mean, it was 2 years, so fucking sucked. But there was also good people along the way. So yeah, we opened in 2013, and it was a grind, man. Right? I mean, you're kind of just grinding to try to get it open, and then you open, and you're like, oh fuck, what do we do now? Let's fucking brew and sell beer. Then you're kind of figuring out how to operate a business and dealing with cash flow and payroll and distribution and trying to get credit from Country Malt and BSG, even though we were just starting. And it was, I remember actually we were at Jupiter Craft Beer Fest that we that first year within our first 12 months, and we met the guys from Country Malt, and they're like, "Hey man, anything we could do?" And Pop's like, "Fuck yeah, give me some credit. Just give me some credit. Give me some breathing room, man. That's all I need. Give me some breathing room." And Patrick, actually, I believe he's still there, and he hooked it up, and he gave us like literally the next week. He emailed us and sent us the credit application and pushed it through, and we were able to get some credit, and that was like a, you know,
Oh yeah.
because as you can imagine, cash flow is always especially with beer. I think people don't realize, right? You got to buy all your raw materials, you got to brew it. It takes you, 2 to 3 weeks to get it finished. You load it up on the truck, send it to the distributor. They have 30 days to pay you. So you're in the hole good 2 months,
Yeah.
before you get paid out for that beer. So that was a huge relief from the get go. So yeah, and then thankfully we built a good team. I always everyone always asks like, what made it so you know you guys hit success and all this, like what made it great? And I'd say the team. We had a killer team. The people really, I think, are the difference between anyway. Everybody can make good beer, good brand. I think it's the people that come in and battle every day that really sets you apart. So, but yeah, and we things went well. Sold 24.5% 2017, the CBA Craft Brew Alliance at the time. I did a like a the Brewbound pitch challenge, and I ended up winning, and that's what kind of kicked off the relationship with CBA. They were the sponsors,
Yeah,
and we got a
I
chance to go.
remember you guys won that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually kind of cool because they paid us. They paid for us to go to Portland and hang out with the guys at Widmer. So I got a chance to meet with Rob Widmer, and all those guys, and it was awesome. Brewed a batch, drank great beer in Portland. Um, and then they kind of right after that approached us about possibly doing purchasing a piece of the brewery. So we negotiated. We sold 24.5% so we could remain independent. And then the following year, they came 2018, and they purchased the remaining portion. And I mean, CBA days from like 2018 to 2020 when they got bought by AB are awesome. They were really good. I
So
mean,
you,
they
so
were.
you remained with the company the whole time during that
Yep.
time, and in the same like operating. What were you doing at that time at the
Yeah,
brewery?
still running it. The way we operated with under the CBA model, it was very, they were very laissez-faire. We would get our annual budget, our annual targets in terms of volume, and then we were kind of off to do our own thing. We would meet quarterly. We had a board that we would meet. It was three from the Wynwood side, four from the CBA side, and we would kind of present, what quarterly results, how we were doing, kind of what's up for the next quarter, and things like that. And it worked well. I mean, we were growing. We went, I think, from when they bought us in 2017, I think we were somewhere around 5,000 barrels, right? And by the time, I mean, yeah, 5,000 barrels, because we capped out the Wynwood facility. We couldn't keep up. We had 13 fermenters, and 13 fermenters were La Rubia at one point. And then we were able to produce in Portsmouth in
I
their
was just gonna
brewery.
say you were doing La Rubia at up in New Hampshire, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we went from doing 15 barrel batches in Miami all the way to doing 100 barrel batches up there. And that was able to open another faucet. And by the time, I think, right before COVID, we were close to probably like 12,000 barrels.
Wow.
And
Damn. Yeah.
like 90% of that was Miami-Dade County.
Yeah.
So
I feel like you guys had the right you had the right almost everything at the right time when you guys opened. You I mean I'm not super familiar with Miami's inner workings and the rise of neighborhoods, but I feel like Wynwood was like the artsy neighborhood at the time when you guys were opening up,
sure.
but it had not reached like Wynwood levels like
Yeah.
what it is now quite yet. So I feel like you guys got right in on the ground floor of when that was heading upward, and you had the graffiti, the paint can tap handles, and you guys were like right with it from the beginning, and also being of Hispanic background, like I feel like your communities embraced you guys like super quick as well because you were like, we're one of you.
For
Yeah, I
for
mean,
our
we were.
listeners not in Florida, Wynwood neighborhood, of course, named after famed 1960s British invasion virtuoso Steve Wynwood, as I understand.
Exactly right.
Exactly. You
Exactly
you
right.
are the resident historian, Tim.
Of not only Minnesota information, but also apparently everything to do with Miami. I think we should have like a pop-up video kind of thing where Tim just puts in facts.
That's perfect. Um, yeah, dude, like the neighborhood was rough, back in 2013, 2012 when we were trying to open up construction. I mean, it was rough, like really rough. Um, I think the first day we had like our window in the front, right? We were so stoked. Next day, somebody actually tried to take a stone, a big fucking rock to the front of it to see if it would break so they can break in and steal it, anything that was inside. I mean, people's cars got stolen, like broken into all the time. Um, People got shot around the corner. We lived through some interesting times in the neighborhood. I mean, we also saw some really interesting things too, right? Like the Horizon neighborhood was fun. A lot of really cool brands too coming up, like Panther Coffee, Zach the Baker.
Mhm.
Being around that time it was fun. Those guys are super good dudes. And it was great to see like the neighborhood come around and like become the neighborhood that it became and vibrant. But yeah, dude, that was a fun time.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's plenty of people who say, well, now even today, like Wynwood isn't what it used to be. Like it's already like over commercialized to some, but I mean, look at you guys were like the first brewery, I think, to open up there, and
Hmm.
now and at its peak there was it's Tropical in Wynwood.
Yep. Yeah, that's what
Okay,
we got. Yeah.
so there's only two left now. Out of there was
Yes.
five at one point.
Yes.
Because rents have gotten crazy there, huh?
Well, I think it was a mix of things. Yeah, I think I I mean I'm not sure. I think the Concrete Beach one was a rent issue. Um,
Okay.
the Wynwood one, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know why they closed it down. I wasn't involved in those conversations. Is the reason I'm no longer there. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I think Wakefield probably seems like it was a rent thing as well.
Hmm.
Which is a shame, right? Because you're losing a lot of people that made the neighborhood what it was, right? I
Yeah.
So,
mean,
so I'm interested in this, and obviously, we're going to talk about your position now. You're at the Tank, so we're not just going
yep.
to, tread on old ground the entire time. But because you were there from the beginning, from its inception, owner of the brand, shepherding it through everything. Uh, Two things. One, at this point, was it ever possible to support five breweries down in that area? Is my first question, and the second one is: do you have, when you look at the fact that the brewery is no longer there, and I think are they doing the beer now at Vesa Sur? Is that what
I think
I've?
they're doing some brands at
Okay.
Vesa Ruby. I
Uh,
believe it's either Portsmouth or Georgia.
Gotcha. But do you have? I mean, are you bummed about that? Like, is there a lot of disappointment there, or are you so far removed from the brand? It's like, okay, it just kind of happened.
In regards to like the breweries closing down, or
Yeah.
just what's
Well,
happened to
I mean, for your
Wynwood?
brand that you started, but I'm also just interested in that neighborhood because I think a lot of people thought that this was like this vibrant scene, and you talked about having to grow it from the ground floor. And then
Mhm.
you have the gentrification aspect of like the rents going super high. It's We all want that. I mean, I would kill for the kind of a scene in my crappy warehouse district in Boca Raton to have but the cycle of that, oh, now this is passe 10 years later. I don't want to be a part of that either. So I guess I'm asking very complex questions and probably way too many at a time, but I'm just interested in like how you think the beer scene kind of started and evolved in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beer scene kind of evolved throughout the entire area, not just Wynwood in particular. I mean, I think it's a loaded question, right? Can you survive as a small independent brewery in that neighborhood? Is it possible? I think it's possible. I really do. Um, Five of them, maybe. I'm not sure, right? Uh, you had two. I mean, the remaining two are owned by are backed by multinational companies, so they're
Yeah.
not. It's kind of makes, I guess, I don't have a lot of evidence to tell you that. Yeah, it could be right.
It seems like it kind of pushed those
Yeah,
people out for the people that had all the money and the financing.
yeah. I mean, it could. I think it's difficult, right? Because I think that whereas if I remember correctly, where I've been to y'all's up in Boca, it's like a warehouse industrial area where
Mhm.
Wynwood is not as industrial-esque, right? Like you don't have, I mean, our ceilings, I think, are like the highest on the tees, and between the twin tees was like 13 feet tall, right? So there's certain limitations and to be
Mhm.
able to produce enough product for your brand to become profitable. I mean, we were profitable before we got purchased by CBA. Wynwood was profitable when we were at 100% capacity and the tap room was kicking, right? And we did have a very long lease till, man, I want to say like 2032.
Oh, wow.
We did have a landlord that was willing to invest, right, and have a long-term tenant. So those opportunities were there, right? Also, like whether if you look, we were a little off the beaten path, right, in the Wynwood kind of neighborhood because we were kind of far west from the main
Mhm.
corridor of
You guys
Northwest
were like
Second.
almost right up against 95, right?
Correct. But that was a reason too, though, right? Because like the landlord was willing to give us, we were able to secure a cheaper rent and a longer lease, but we weren't, in the center of it all necessarily. Which honestly, I felt to a certain extent it worked for us really well because a lot of people would find parking off in like the fringes, and we were kind of off that area, and then
Yeah.
they could walk into, you're a block away, you're a block and a half away. You're not like, you're not walking a mile. And you can walk to like the main corridor or the heart of Wynwood and then just come back. And then you could stop at the brewery on the way in or on the way out. So it did kind of help us out a little bit, to be honest with you.
The last time I went to the brewery was late 2019, like before the world ended, the first time. And you met my wife and Joel
Mhm.
and some of our friends up there, and we took Brightline down. We got a lift from Brightline and typed in Wynwood Brewing, and the driver was like, "Oh, okay, Wynwood," and he's driving us, and then he just stops at a corner. He's like, "Is this good?" I'm like, "No, this isn't where we're going." He's like, "This is Wynwood." Like, we're going to Wynwood Brewing. There's a brewery. We're not just going to the neighborhood. He's like, "This is the middle of Wynwood." I'm like,
Yeah.
like, dude, follow your GPS and take us to there.
That's funny. Yeah, that was it's probably like around the Wynwood Walls area, right? Like right in
Yeah.
the heart of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so kind of going back to your question, Kevin, in terms of could it happen? I think it could. I mean, I think it's possible to have a profitable brewery there. Um, you know, Everything has to align. And then I think your second part of the question is how do I feel about how everything or how are things going in terms of with
Yeah, I
Wynwood? Is
mean,
that
yeah, where are your emotions on that? I mean, you
yeah?
you birthed a thing that you put a lot of love, sweat, and tears into, and
You
seeing
saw
it.
it become successful.
Yeah, where's your head at? How do you feel about that? Good, bad, or indifferent?
So I mean, it's still successful. I mean, they're still selling it and it's still doing a pretty good job out in the market now. It's funny because now on
Yeah,
the other
they could have
side,
just killed the brand altogether or
right,
sold it for pennies if it wasn't. Yeah, so
right.
they
So on
see
the other
value.
side, yeah. So for me, like standing now on the other side, working with another brewery and then kind of visiting accounts and seeing the handle everywhere, it's kind of like, oh fuck, like yeah, that's pretty sweet. Um, I mean, it definitely my biggest. I'll be frank. My biggest thing that really impacted me was the shutting down of the brewery and the way that went down. Um, because I didn't know. I didn't know till probably like a week before. And I wasn't happy about it, obviously. Um, but I don't have any hard feelings with uh, AB, CBA, none of that. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't mine anymore, right? Sold it. It's slowly started kind of, I think, past like 2021. It slowly just started what was originally Wynwood, right? And to me, Wynwood was kind of like the culture of it, right? And the people. People started leaving, right, for whatever reasons. Um, that's when I think things started kind of. So it wasn't like a one day to the next for me. It
Hmm.
took me a while to like. It took a while, and I started realizing how things started kind of, um, changing or evolving, whatever you want to call it. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, there's certain there's a point in time where I reflected a lot, and again, I think what I missed or what I was sad to see go was like we built a really good culture and really good camaraderie. Um, we would hang out, like we enjoyed being around each other, and we enjoyed the fight, and I mean, like you said, as you guys know, like you fucking you bleed together, you cry together, you celebrate together. Um, but but yeah, I mean, it was a good ride. Now I'm excited for the next one, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's cool.
the times that I went down there, like your staff always was so pleasant and seemed genuinely happy to be there. When I would see people from the brewery out in the market or at festivals or events, like just some of the nicest, happiest people I feel like I ever encountered in the industry down here. And yeah, like to say that you built a culture and with the people there is absolutely dead on from what I saw and experienced out there. So I mean, it was something great.
I have a question for Tim. Have you seen anything personally like that with a brewery either getting bought out or closing down that you personally experienced up in Minnesota, or just a brewery in that area that's had that happen?
We really haven't had a ton of that, honestly. It's just not a thing. I couldn't really even give you a reason why, but it just isn't a thing. I think there have been times in the past where people were approached and rebuffed. But otherwise, no, it's just a very different thing. I don't know that for all my love and veneration of this, we don't have a hot market like Miami, uh, frankly, right? I mean, you just talk about this little neighborhood that had a Boston beer brewery in there. CBA came in and bought one. Like that's just not a thing that we
It
see here.
it really
Which
is
is
crazy
wild
that
still.
Yeah,
yeah, you had the small guys who opened, like you guys who grew on your own. You were invested in by a larger company who then was bought by a larger company. You had big craft beer, Boston Beer, open up a place from the start. You had Wakefield, a small hype brewery, open up there. AB opened up their own brewery there. Heineken opened up their own brewery there. It's it's weird that there was only really two very small people that started in that
Hmm.
neighborhood with on the ground floor and didn't have a shit ton of money. I mean, it is kind of crazy to hear you talking about like begging for credit when Boston Beer could just come into the neighborhood and build their big, beautiful facility. I mean, don't get me wrong, that
Yeah,
facility
that
was
was.
gorgeous.
I mean, you
Uh,
got to go see La Tropical. That's takes the cake. That's a gorgeous facility. It's
oh
like,
yeah, yeah. I
oh,
have not been to that one.
it's unbelievable. It's got to be one of the prettiest breweries I've ever been to.
So there's something that I've really wanted to talk with you about, and this is something that is kind of, and I know we're still kind of treading on older ground, but I think this is really relevant, especially to craft breweries my size and breweries that are trying to grow. Uh, just a little side story. I was down to the Keys this weekend and I saw the first cans of High Life on the shelf of their new packaging. And I was with my brother-in-law, who is a sales rep for Civil Society. And I pulled the 6-pack off the shelf and I said, what do you see here?" And he's like, "Oh, it's High Life. It's a new packaging." I'm like, "What don't you see?" I'm like, "There's really no Cigar City here. It's High Life. It's not Cigar City High Life. It's High Life." They're not hiding it, but they're not promoting it. High Life has become its own brand. Well, what was the first beer to do that in Florida? And it was La Rubia. And we have talked about that internally at Barrel of Monks. In my previous breweries, we talked about things like this, where when does this brand become such a call brand that the brewery doesn't matter anymore and you just become La Rubia? So it's a fascinating uh, marketing technique. It's a fascinating direction for a brewery to go in. And I'm just wondering, sure you were part of those conversations, and I'm sure, and it looked like it worked out really, really well. What went in all that?
So we did a refresh, a brand refresh, and actually Ian Salzberg, who you guys know, um, when he was pivotal when he became part of our team, and we did a refresh, and we when we were doing the refresh, it was actually one of the conversations we were having about, do we push La Rubia aside and kind of let it do its own thing, or do we kind of keep it within the same brand hierarchy with Wynwood kind of at the top, and then each individual brand doing its thing? Um, so like the brand hierarchy was on the new label packaging was kind of like a Wynwood Brewing on top. Then you had La Rubia, and then Wynwood Brewing and Pops Porter, Wynwood Brewing, Father Francisco. We knew eventually we were going to do it, but I decided to kind of hold on just to see how first the market initially reacted to the brand refresh, with the idea that kind of phase two would be kind of going into La Rubia doing its own branding with no Wynwood Brewing on kind of like the face of the brand. Why we made the decision is because, I mean, La Rubia was 80% of our volume. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a clear cut winner. The velocity was just on par with some when we were looking at, um, when we became part of CBA, then we were able to see a lot more data in terms of Nielsen scan data and how we were comparing with other folks, right? Not just craft, but like imports and things like that. We realized that velocity and dollars, like Larubia was winning. It was winning, right? It was winning on in the large format. It was winning in on premise. Um, so that's why we made the call. And it kind of just kept going. I mean, she just fucking took off. Um, so we knew it was going to happen eventually because of the amount of the the it was so significant, right? The amount of volume in our portfolio that the brand represented. It kind of had its own identity, right? And you know, you figure out, when you're going through this, right? Whether I'm a home brewer, right? I mean, I did go to college, but never had a business before this. Thankfully, I had my old man too, pops, to bounce ideas and fight and argue with. But um, it was good always to have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off and kind of test, make sure that gut check what we were thinking. But you start thinking about, like, dude, like, once you start going, right, you go into this whole mentality of starting a brewery with kind of like the kumbaya factor of, like, yeah, we're in fucking beer and this is awesome. It is, and don't get me wrong, it is. But then you start, like, hey, I got to make sure I got to pay these people, right? And you got to worry about payroll, and you got to worry about the actual fact that it's a business. And that becomes very clearly very quick when you have to pay loans back, and you have to pay your bills, and you have to make payroll. So my mentality, really changed over the years in terms of focusing, right? And it's not that, to what you asked, like, it's not that Wynwood as a brewery didn't matter. It was more of, hey, if I hold La Rubia back, then am I doing my job as the head of this, right? Like, and I had, like, it's funny, I was having conversations with Carlos, the owner of the Tank, about certain things, because we ended up making some changes on some of the core lineup, and these are kind of decisions that you battle with, right? It's kind of like the crafty side versus the business side. Whether you take and axe a brand that's near and dear to your heart, right? I mean, I remember we were having discussions at one point about turning Pops Porter into a seasonal instead of having it a year-round beer, because it was slowly just losing
It's a
volume.
tough brand. Porters
Yeah.
don't sell. I mean,
Correct.
no matter how good they are, they don't sell.
Yeah, doesn't
Particularly
matter.
in a perpetually warm climate. They don't sell
Yeah.
even great here.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that is that in Key West and in the Keys, it did fucking great, which was,
Interesting.
I don't get it, but it did really well. But in Miami per se, right, our backyard, it just wasn't doing all that great. So, just kind of long-winded answer coming back around, and just, we kind of made the decision to let her kind of do her own thing, La Rubia meaning. And the fight, not the fight, but the kind of thought process was, why hold it back, right? Like, why hold it back? I mean, I remember one point before we made a deal with CBA, I came to my house. I came home, all sweaty, all gross, pissed off. And my wife is like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "This fucking sucks. I got into beer to, like, brew great fucking beer, and 12 out of my 13 fermenters are fucking La Rubia. Like, I don't want to be La Rubia Brewing Company, right?"
Right.
And she's like, "Well, is it paying the bills?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's paying the bills. Like, well, people want it. Like, yeah, people want it." She's like, "Well, what the fuck are you so upset about? Like, you're brewing something people want. Like, what's your problem?" I'm like, "Oh, fuck. Didn't think about it that way. I'm over here trying to
Perspective.
be I'm trying to be here, the
Perspective's important.
artist." Yeah. So you change, right? And then you have people like that kind of slap you upside the head and kind of make you realize, like, stop moping over stupid shit.
Listen,
And
I'm 15 years into this industry, and 10 years almost. I mean, I started brewing the first batches at Barrel of Monks about 10 years ago today. I started in September, even though the brewery didn't open until later on the next year. I
Yes.
would kill to be the Wizard Brewing Company or Single and Havana Brewing Company right about now. If I could just sell one brand and keep the tanks filled, I'd be thrilled.
I was just gonna say, I was like, we see these brand extensions now that have caught fire with, like, your Voodoo Rangers, your little things from Sierra Nevada, 805 from Firestone, and breweries now want to have those, and they like
Hmm.
they are trying to create brands that can be that, and you just happen to have one just fall into your lap, like like
Yeah.
when it happens, and maybe that sounded like shitty, but when something happens naturally like that, like I feel like 805 was that for Firestone Walker, a beer that was originally only going to be in the 805 area code, and then it was like, well, we'll expand it out into more of it'll just be California exclusive, and then it's like, holy shit, this is our biggest selling beer, we need to sell this more, we need to create something around it. And like, when I remember John, our brand manager at Brown, telling me some of your sales numbers down in Miami, and I was just like what? Like with La Rubia, I was like, that is fucking insane. But yeah, like I've heard so many people, brewers, be like, you know, what, I wish I was at Allagash just brewing white all the time. Like
Yeah.
I
Well, I mean,
like
the original was Fat Tire, right?
yeah, yep.
I mean, how
pretty
many
much.
people thought the name of that brewery was Fat Tire and not New
Hmm.
Belgium?
Yeah.
But that's a normal process. I mean, we
Yeah.
used to have this conversation constantly internally at every brewery I ever worked for. When I used to work at a beer bar, people would come and say, "I'll have the Dogfish Head." They had no idea that there was more than one beer. They just thought because 60 Minute was mostly on draft, and because I was an asshole, I would happily pour them a worldwide stout and watch them cry because they would try to drink it. But it's the natural understanding of the mass beer buying public that a beer is just a beer. You don't have a brand, you don't have a brewery with 17 different brands. You have a beer. You're the Fat Tire, you're the 60 Minute, you're the whatever. And we always have this constant push pull. And one of the things, Luis, that I really give you a lot of credit for is you said something about like your favorite brands and moving pops possibly. I don't know if you ended up doing it to a seasonal, but you have to be willing to look at your portfolio and murder your babies. You have to be able to look at your portfolio and say, I love this beer with every fiber of my being, and it's not working for what it needs to practically for my production. And the breweries that do that give themselves a fighter's chance. The breweries that just stick to their guns and they say, every beer that I make has to be a beer that I personally want to drink all the time, they kind of get left, in the dust. And that's just been my experience as I've seen it.
I would just like to put on record that Kevin did admit to being someone who is pro killing babies.
This is why I can never run for office. It's because this podcast, they would just take that clip. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. One, I'm an idiot.
Kevin
Two,
Abbott
I've
wants
done
to
terrible,
kill
terrible
babies.
things. Yeah, a lot of
Paid
reasons,
for
but
by the
that's up
super
there.
PAC against Kevin Abbott.
Kevin Abbott wants to kill your baby.
So
awesome.
let's. I mean, yeah, it's still pretty much a powerhouse brand down there, and it has become a symbol of itself. And I mean, if I were in your position, I know I would be having so many mixed emotions all the time. But I mean, the fact that you said, like, you went into an account working for the Tank, saw a La Rubia handle, and you were like, fuck yeah. Like, that's something to hang your hat on, and you did. And like, yeah, at the end of the day, just being proud of something that you created and seeing it out there being something. I mean, yeah, that's. I don't know if I would be able to so easily get to it, so I'm just saying that you're a better emotionally stable person than me. But like
I mean,
That goes
there's
for most people, just
yeah,
to put it out
yeah,
there.
yeah. No, I mean, there's been a long emotional journey, but I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like from the other side now, right? From the Tank,
So yeah, let's
we need yeah we
Yeah, I
need
want to
we
get into
need
that.
we need brands to succeed, right? I mean, overall, the fact that breweries are closing down doesn't send a good message to the industry, or doesn't build confidence with wholesalers, doesn't build confidence with the consumer locally. So
Wait,
I
Maurice, are you saying that breweries are closing? Because I wasn't aware of that. We don't talk about that constantly in every second of this podcast at all times.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, like having the breweries and everything closed down obviously is not good, not good at all. And in my mind, we need it. We need La Rubia to continue to succeed. And I obviously wish I'm still friends with some folks over there, so still wish them nothing but the best. And we need that brand to continue to go. It's gonna clear the path for us to continue to do what we're doing at the tank. So
what's the
It's
saying? Like high tides rise ships or something like
high
that.
tide raises all boats,
That's
which
right.
is complete nonsense on the surface of it. We've been saying that in the craft beer industry forever, and a bunch of people went out of business with that phrase on their lips as they drown in the high tide. But I do want to know.
you
So
just gotta make sure your
you
boat's good, though. So
yeah, well, that's the thing. If you have a solid business plan and good people that have the right experience to run this thing, you give yourselves a chance. It doesn't guarantee success by any stretch of the imagination. But you were
Also, don't
saying
store your boat in your brewery.
that's also an important thing to know. But so you said that when we were talking a little bit off air that you had moved out of state for a period of
yep.
time. So did you completely get out of the industry after selling Wynwood?
No, I stayed on. I was
Well, I'm
still
saying
general manager.
I'm sorry. After the final buyout, at what point did you move on and away from Wynwood? I guess I should have said.
So I moved to Tennessee. I was still traveling back and forth and
Oh,
managing the
okay.
business.
I guess I
Then I
didn't
took
understand
a
that. Okay.
no, no, yeah. I didn't specify, so it's all good. Um, and then at 2022, I think it was. Yeah, 2022. I took a step back, stayed on as a founder of the
Okay.
brewery. So, but I wasn't involved in the day to day. And then my contract ended at the end of 2023. So I did not renew my contract. Um, and then I was looking at doing some consulting work, helping breweries out with, just managing, right? Managing the books, managing portfolio, sales, everything, marketing, the whole kit and caboodle. And I started talking to Carlos um, from the tank, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you come and run it? Let's let's we've been talking about possibly working together for a long time, um, and we've been friends for a very long time as well, probably close to 10 years, maybe more. Um, and the move just made sense to come back. Uh, since I already had taken the kind of a year off, right? It was a nice little sabbatical. Spent time with my kids, with a wife. As you know, this is not the easiest of industries for those 10 years, right? A lot of long nights, festivals.
You guys
Um,
did a good bit of traveling. Just me following you along on your
yep.
your Instagram. It looked a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
did some traveling. What first time I went to Europe was last year, last August, with my wife as an adult. That was nice. Um, and yeah, it was great. It was great. Decided to kind of come back and um, started in March of this year with the tank. So
Uh, I've never been down to the tank yet, but I've had a
I
number
come
of their
down.
beers very easily. I do. I gotta. There's a lot of stuff I need to get down there for, but I can very easily get a lot of your beers up here, and I gotta say the Pilsner, La Placida, did I say
La
that right?
Playita. Yeah.
La Playita, uh, is I think one of the top notch Pilsners in the state, and we make one that I am very fond of. So like I think that that beer is just a fucking crusher, and I can get it at the Publix by my house. So
Thank you.
it's really awesome. So like
Um,
just to say, like I feel like quality has been a big thing there since before you were even there, and I've always been impressed by that in that brand is that I could pick up just a random six pack that I've never had before at my local grocer or a a beer on tap at some place around and know be pretty confident that I would have something of good quality.
no, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean that's one of I wouldn't have. I don't think I would work for any other brewery if it not this brewery because first of all, Carlos is a fucking great human being, just salt of the earth. And then the team, like the brewers, to your point, make just stellar beers across the board, from pilsners to IPAs to got some great. Right now, the Oktoberfest, the Fest beer roast is just delicious. Um, and we have a lab guy, Willie, who's fucking
I've
brilliant.
met Willie before, yeah.
Yeah, Willie's just
I met Willie
fucking
too. Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, just a brilliant, just a
Yeah,
great
he
human
came up
being
for the
too.
IPA you guys brewed with right, Kevin?
Yeah. Willie was so we did a collaboration beer, Neon Skyline, kind of a West Coast style IPA. Ralph worked with your, I mean, I think this is before you came on that we did that
Yeah,
collaboration. And honestly, one of the best, it was the best collaboration we ever did. One of the best beers that was a result of a real collaboration. And Willie was the one that came up and brewed it with us.
fuck yeah,
I still love that beer.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that
Yeah,
that
that's great
guy's
to hear.
science mind is phenomenal, and having someone like him is just such a crucial piece to a brewery.
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's we have a great brew team. The fact that we have a lab team is lab guy is awesome. The beers are great. You know, taste great. Great ownership. So, I mean, honestly, I feel very confident that we're gonna do great things in the coming years. So,
That's exciting.
yeah.
When you can put together great beer, and this is another thing. One of the things that I always say, and unfortunately, we compartmentalize a lot. Like when people come to my brewery, I'm not sending them to a brewery in Miami, and I'm not talking about that, or I'm not talking about Civil up in Jupiter because we're so segmented. But I always tell them to go over to Copper Point, and then they say why, and I say because everything they make is two style. No matter what beer you get, you're going to enjoy it. And I feel like the beers I've had from Tank have been that. It's that if you're going to have a beer, it's going to be two style. It might not be your favorite because you might like, pastry stout, whatever. You might be into something else. But if you're into an IPA, if you're into an amber, if you're into, whatever it is, you're going to enjoy the beers. And when you pair that with someone with your kind of knowledge who's been successful, and there's not a lot of them because this is still a new industry, especially in Florida. How many people
Hmm.
have successfully grown a brand? There's like four. So they're real lucky to have you.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. No, I'm excited because we talk about we make beer that tastes like beer, right? It's not a thing that we don't try to do the pastry or the milkshakes or the all that. I mean, we do have some fruited wheat on, and it does well. We have some sours that we have on too, which is really nice, and they do well. Obviously fruited, but outside of that, they're not like milkshakey or any kind of, they're palatable. They're solid beers that you would want to drink. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I'm stoked. I honestly, it's been 6 months in. It's been a interesting 6 months, kind of wrapping my head around everything. Totally different dynamic than kind of
'Cause how old was
being.
that brewery when you came into it? Like at least
They
5
just
years
hit.
old, right?
They just hit. Yeah, we just hit 7 this year.
Okay.
So we've been around
Yeah,
now for
you're
7 years.
coming into something that's already pretty established. They have their ways of doing things, and yeah, I gotta assume like that it takes some time to really get your feet under you with some place like that.
Yeah, definitely making a lot of changes. A lot of some people left, unfortunately. But fortunately for them, they were really happy. But so building some of a new team too. So brought on Ben Benson to run my
Yeah.
sales.
I
Yeah,
know Ben well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I haven't seen him. I don't think I've seen him in 5 years, but I know Ben.
So and he was with me
At
Yeah.
Wynwood, yeah.
at Wynwood. Yeah, so he ran
Like,
sales with me or for you know with us for a while, and so I'm excited to have him on board. Brought a new taproom GM that does worked at Ballast Point and was in uh, sorry about that. Was in California for 7 years. She's from Miami. She came back. I'm excited to have her. She ran some of the pubs over there in San Diego. Um,
so Luis, I just want to jump in here. I know you're doing this. You're 6 months in, but I just want to share with you my strategy. When you walk into a situation like that, just tell everybody they're wrong, right? Get real big, to really rest on your own laurels, make them feel small. They like that. They really,
yeah, they
really
love
like
that.
that. And it just goes over well. Tim, what do you think about that? About going into like a brewery and just kind of puffing yourself up and making sure that they know you're the big dog?
I literally like to go over to the tanks and just pee right on them, just to go
You're like a
ahead and
dog,
Mark
mark
your
your
territory.
territory.
yeah,
Mark your
absolutely,
territory.
absolutely. It asserts some dominance, and I think people usually get into that.
So let me get this straight. You are investing in your people. You are hiring people with knowledge and skills and experience and uh, believing in them. What a concept. Like more people should really try that.
I like my method personally, but hey, listen, tomato, to each their own. Sometimes you do it this way, sometimes you do it the other way. Sometimes you pee on a tank. I mean, listen, what are you gonna do?
Look, that's the way you're gonna assert your dominance. Just let them know that you're in charge, and
Let it rip.
yeah, exactly. And, like, so I've been looking at the tank's website and looking at. I mean, you guys really cover quite a bit of styles here. You've got some Abbey ales that you're doing. So anything from, La Playita to a Belgian style quad.
Mhm.
You motherfucker.
Taproom only, Kevin. Chill out, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
I almost
his
had a
quad
heart attack.
taproom only too.
Get him off the show. Just kidding.
That's awesome. Yeah,
How big?
so we
Yeah, how
actually
big is the system there?
it's a 15 barrel
Okay.
system. Yeah, we do high gravity brews though, so we can crank out. Um, yeah, so actually, it's funny you talking about that. We were just yesterday reviewing kind of beer release calendar and talking about it for next year. Um, so yeah, we have a bunch of different series, right? We're working on kind of currently we have our barrel age series, we have a IAB series, we have a lager series, an IPA series. We're gonna do some revamping on some of that stuff. Keeping a lot of the same things, not really axing a lot for the top room, but kind of just also thinking about how we can bring some more excitement too in the market, right? Because I mean, like that's one of the key things too is you gotta get the wholesalers and the accounts excited and the reps excited. Um, it's like a fine balance. You gotta get them focused, only give them a few things to talk about, but then also you gotta keep it exciting for them to go out there every day and sell something different and feel like it's a balance, right? So I definitely want to do some fun stuff for the distribution too, because it's like we're fucking independent brewery. Why the fuck not? But do it right, right? We got to do it with intention and do it right, and you know, build it nicely, but definitely have some fun with it too, though. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at what's on tap right now. Milkberry Crunch.
It's probably a little outdated.
Okay. Himmy Eat World, which I think is just a great name.
Oh
What's
yeah,
it? Himmy Eat
yeah.
World?
It's after Jimmy
Oh,
Buckets, dude, from the Heat.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
So we call
okay.
it Hemi because in
I,
Spanish people might not say Jimmy, they might say Hemi.
and then you got the band in
Jimmy
Jimmy
Eat
Eat
the
World.
World,
Yeah,
correct.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fantastic to see, things that are, a couple lagers, the Cuban lager onto anything that is a fruited sour or, something a little bit more esoteric out there too. So you can kind of grab all kinds of people.
Yeah, we definitely love our loggers. We got a lot of loggers on right now. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, we love our lager. I think from like a brewery's perspective, we like our brewers and the staff just love drinking lagers. Period. So we have a good handful on right now. I think we have a Dunkel, we have a Czech Duck Lager, we have a Bohemian coming Pilsner coming in. We have the La Playita, which is a Pilsner. We have the two Murtzen, and then we have a Fest beer. So we have all
you
kinds, and
did a
they're all,
Martzen and a Fest beer.
we did
Nice.
them both. Yeah, every year they do them both, and we're gonna keep it. And I think it's a good yin to the yang.
You play both
Um,
kinds, country and western.
yeah, we go. Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
And they both taste good. They both. I mean, not they don't taste good. They're phenomenal. They're very very good. The team does a fucking phenomenal job in those lagers. They're tasty. So yeah, we're gonna keep having fun with it.
Very cool. What's the barrelage output roundabout that you guys did last year or that you're looking at doing this year?
We'll do probably just shy of 4,000 this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah, that's roundabout like what we did at the previous brewery at around our best times, at least when I was there. So yeah, that's a pretty respectable number to be doing. What you told me about the the number you were outputting from Wynwood, like that blew my mind too. Like I have been in that brewery, I have seen those low ceilings, and they're like, man, that you cranked out that much beer in there.
Yeah,
Such
we
a
were.
fucking testament to that brand and
Yeah,
how
those dudes were fucking. I mean, we were brewing double batches nonstop, so it wasn't like we were not a 24-hour operation because we just couldn't, but we were pretty close.
so what's in the future for the tank and for Luis?
Well, I'm gonna be here for a while. Look, right now it's focusing on our kind of just internal strategy and building the culture and getting the people on the same page. That's number one priority for me right now. We're in the kicked off planning for 25 in terms of volume, release calendar, events, kind of focuses, things like that. Um, but overall, I'm very optimistic about bank and just beer in general. I think it's everything is a cycle. Everything in life is a cycle. I think right now we're just going over the cycle. I think too, from hitting the field with our reps, I think what we're seeing is some folks are resting their they're just being pessimistic, or reps are just taking advantage that the industry's down and not showing up. So we're gonna show up, right? I think that's the majority of the battle is just showing up and building those relationships with accounts, and trying to support it, get liquid to lips, and hopefully we become the beer of not just Miami but Florida, kind of what we want to aim at.
So I'm not sure if your positivity means you should be on every one of these shows to balance us, or you should never be allowed on this show again. because
Oh,
of the
maybe I could come
contradictory.
back. Yeah, maybe I could come back in another year and then see how I'm feeling about it. I'd be like,
Well,
You're very
you still
off-brand
optimistic?
at this point.
You come back, you're super disheveled. You haven't showered in 3 days.
Back
Or
up
you
in
come-
Tennessee, living in the middle of the woods, your internet's spotty at best.
Or you come back and the library behind you is expanded, and then there's mahogany, and you maybe have a
Sipping
pipe.
on a brandy, having a pipe.
It's like, he was fucking right. Why wasn't I positive? I could have been positive too, and I'd have mahogany.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think there's still opportunity out there. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think there was. Um, I think I think there's a lot of room still, right? And I think if you look at the way I like to look at it is if we can just hang on and grow just a little bit now when things are bad and just make an impact with a consumer, make an impact with key accounts. And when things come back, which they're going to come back, everything's cyclical again, then I think we'll be set to really own a piece of the market. And that's
You
what
set up for the future. Yeah.
right. So could be off though. I don't know. We're rolling the dice on this one, boys.
Aren't we all at all times?
Ooh, yeah. All right. You guys have any other questions for him, or?
Covered mine.
Yeah. I think hearing you just kind of talk about that transitioning from ownership to not, and what that kind of transition looked like and where you found space was really what I was kind of hoping to learn more on. And I mean, what you say is, I think, probably about as ideal as anyone could have it, really. But again, that's because you have a positive attitude, so that's not necessarily fair.
Fair. What's fair? No, I have a good gig. I mean, I don't have. I mean, I have this semi stress of it, but it's not. I mean, I'm still stressing over the job, right? But now it's. I mean, I like even I feel ownership. Like I feel like Carlos has given me the reins to like feel like I'm like it's mine, and
That's cool.
so I do feel like the stress of almost owning it.
All of the
So
stress without any of the
yeah,
actual ownership. Yeah.
yeah, but
And he's still positive, ladies and gentlemen.
I know.
yeah.
And he's not nearly as gray as you would think that
Right?
he would be.
I still have got some grays coming out, but I mean it's the beer. It keeps me young, keeps me alive.
Well,
So,
I think that's a good point to go into our last calls, the point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related, not beverage related. And because you are our guest, Luis, we always let our guests go first. So,
oh no,
what?
I don't even know what to talk about. I would actually
Okay,
one of you guys go.
Tim, go ahead.
So this weekend I did something that I had not done in probably close to 20 years. Something I thought I swore I would never do again. And that is I went to the Renaissance Fair. I've purposely avoided it for as long as I have. But my girlfriend wanted to go, and I have no spine whatsoever, so I said sure. But no, wait, I was really, really happy. I can't believe how much fun I had at the Renaissance Fair. I always kind of likened it to the state fair, where I don't like the people watching because their vote counts as much as mine. But I do think that I don't know. It just seemed like a different kind of crowd, and I was severely less depressed by them than I would be at the state fair. But it was a lot of fun, and I really didn't think I would enjoy it, and I guess this is me maturing. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. So, yeah.
Luis, you ready? Or you need another one?
No, it's next person. Go.
I'll hop in here. Um, I just want to say that the people who run the service departments of dealerships are the scum of the earth. And I took my car in yesterday at the time of this recording. I needed a tire sensor replaced on one of my tires because it died, and that happens. And the guy calls me and he's like, "Yeah, we recommend that you do all four right now." I was like, "No, just the one's fine. Just fix that." And I'm like, "No, like we really recommend that you do all four because the other three could die at some point too." I'm like, if one light bulb in my house goes out, I'm not replacing every light bulb at that time. Like, you can do the one. And he's like, no, I'm not allowed to. I'm like, go talk to your manager. Like, you replace the one or you replace none. And they made me sign a waiver saying that if any other tire sensor went off, they warned me. Like, it almost felt threatening because of that. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories about these types of people before, and I've usually had pretty down the middle experiences with them, but holy shit, just like trying to get more money out of a customer for a very simple fix, and also overcharging for the part that they said it's $180. I'm looking at it at 85 online right now from the Subaru parts website. Fuck those people. All right, Luis, you ready now? You get it. I told you about this yesterday too.
I know. I
You can't say
honestly,
that
I
I
didn't even,
didn't.
I didn't even think about it. So my bad. I mean, I guess like my biggest thing nowadays is just don't be an asshole, right? Kind of going off your own thing. Your last call. I think people nowadays are just too wound up on they're living too much in their own little world. I think we got to be kind to each other a little bit more. Like just don't be an asshole, right? Like take the shopping cart back, the grocery store, right? There's like that's the one thing that's like bothered me coming back to South Florida is I'll literally park my car next to where the shopping cart drop off is, so I don't have to walk that far to take the shopping cart back. And next to me, it's always a cart on the median or something, or blocking another car from getting the parking lot when it was maybe 100 feet away. So yeah, just don't be an asshole, I think is my message. Especially now we're in like political season. It's very easy to be an asshole. Doesn't give you the reason to be an asshole. Well, you could, right? Go for it. But just be kind. I think just be kind to people. Be considerate. I think life's too short to be so grumpy and have a stress level, and it's just, in my opinion, it's not good. Buy somebody a beer, buy a beer, share a beer together. That's all.
This is
That's all I
this
gotta
is
say.
absolutely why he's not gray. Uh, Kevin,
This leads me to my last call, which is be an asshole, be mean. No. So there is a story which I don't believe is apocryphal, and we actually might have touched on this at the show at some point. Is the fact that like back in the day they would feed lobster to prisoners. Like it's a mud bug, right? It's in the water. It's a bottom feeder. It's garbage food, but somehow it went from being the food of prisoners to being a bellwether of high society. When I was down in the Keys this weekend, I was looking at people on the beach, and I thought to myself, this is the same thing. If I were to tell you that they forced prisoners to lay on dirt, right? Is it soft dirt? Is it somehow ergonomically molded to your back? No, it's hard, uncomfortable filth. And you lay on this, and then periodically you prance into a salty, briny, uncomfortable water, filthy as any water has ever been. And maybe you step on a sea urchin, and 12 little spines penetrate your foot, and a jellyfish is there, or a Portuguese man o' war will sting you. Is it likely? No, but it's a possibility. And you said that you forced human beings to do this. And then after you go into the water, you come back onto the filth, the dirt, and it just sticks to every part of your body. And then you also tell me that I have to slather all kinds of substances over my body while I'm doing this so I don't get cancer. Because that's a real possibility when you're out in the unforgiving sun, and you have to hydrate like you're running a marathon to make sure you don't die. If I told you this was forced on prisoners, you would say it's inhumane. But yet, it is a thing that people say, I need to go out and do this to show that I'm having a good time on vacation. I think it's mentally ill. I think it's wrong. And I'm wholly uncomfortable with the entire process. Thank you.
That last rant brought to you by the love child of Lewis Black and Jim Gaffigan
I thought he was going to say the aristocrats at the end of it. But
if I stole the comedian's bit, I'm sorry, but that's that.
I'm not saying it's the bit.
I was doing it.
It's the general ethos.
There was definitely some Lewis Black characteristics to that. Plugs time. Luis, do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, tankbrewing.com, the Tank Brewing on Instagram, Facebook. Go for it. We have a big craft beer run coming up October 12th. You want to run and then get your drink on, healthy and hydrating. Come on by.
Kevin?
So our Wizard in Pink, the beer that we do for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, will be out by the time this episode is out. And we do this beer every single year, and proceeds go to Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. It's an arm of the American Cancer Society. Two of my partners at the brewery, Matt and Bill, they're radiologists. They work in the breast cancer community, specifically Matt. It's a really important thing for us to do every single year. We've been a partner with Making Strides for about 6 years now. We've been making the beer for about 7. And it's a really important thing for us. So if you are in the area and you have access to the beer, it's our Wizard White Ale with the orange and coriander. It's the base beer, and we add raspberry to it to give it kind of a pink or a red hue. For the first time ever, it's out in 6-packs, 6-pack 12-ounce cans. You'll be seeing them at Total Wine & More if you're down in the Florida area. But if you come to the tap room, it's on drafted in cans. And once again, there's proceeds go to Making Strides. And also, I want to say about Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. Don't even come buy our beer. Just go to Making Strides and make a donation. Right? Because Making Strides is not like Peggy Adams or not Peggy Adams. What did I say? Peggy Adams. That's
dogs.
That's the dog shelter. Support Peggy Adams. They're fantastic. That's where I got my dog from. Mike, what charity?
You're thinking of Susan G. Komen.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me just back up for a second. I just did terrible things. Peggy Adams, fantastic. Susan G. Komen, all their money goes to marketing. When it comes to Making Strides, this money goes directly to human beings that are having travel problems. It's helping for treatments. They're a wonderful foundation. So if you can't support Bear Monks, don't support Bear Monks. Don't waste your money on beer. Just go to the Making Strides website and donate some money for breast cancer, for not just for awareness, but to help human beings suffering from a terrible situation.
Tim?
I would actually like to go ahead and remind people about Rapids Wholesale. We do actually a lot of brewers out there. We do have a lot of draft part, anything from jockey boxes to tap towers to CO2 regulators. So a lot of those things that you might need to be able to get in a pinch, or you want to go and buy a different quantity of, go ahead and check out rabbitswholesale.com. I don't spend a ton of time in that world, but I do like to go down there and know what we've got on at least the showroom floor.
Nice. I'm gonna talk about charitable things too, Kevin.
Well, now I feel like an asshole.
Well, no, I tried to
It's fair.
space it out. Recently, we at Copperpoint released a just one-off draft-only beer called JD IPA that we are donating proceeds of the sales in our tap room to JD stands for Jonathan Dickinson, which the Jonathan Dickinson State Park is one of the state parks that maybe you heard about was proposed to put fucking golf courses in our natural lands. Luckily, that all kind of died down, thankfully. But we are still donating proceeds of this beer to the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park, a nonprofit organization that works closely with the park. And every single dollar that they take in, they give to the park and goes towards only the park. They have an iconic observation tower there on the highest natural point in South Florida that is deeply in need of repairs, and they will also accept awesome donations over at their website, friendsofjdsp.com. .org. But we are also going to have our beer from there available on tap on October 19th for their 18th annual Fire Festival. It's a family-friendly all-day event with guided hikes, rides, food, fire, prescribed fire demonstrations. That's what the big thing about it is built around, is talking about the goods of prescribed fires in wooded and protected areas. And you'll be able to get pints of that there. And again, that will go towards helping the park out directly themselves. It has been really fun to work with them, and we are excited for potential partnerships and collaboration with the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park in the future, and with other state parks. I am a huge supporter of our natural areas here in this state and just everywhere. And yeah, if you are in the Boynton Beach area and want to stop in and have a beer, I think it's one of the best, if not the best IPA we've ever made. And if you want to go to the park and get some on the 19th, it'll be available there. Or yeah, you can just go support the Friends of Jonathan Dickinson State Park and help save our parks.
That's amazing, Mike. I'm so happy to hear you. Whoever came up with that is a genius, and I love them. So that's really, really cool that you guys are doing that at Copper Point. Just a quick little aside: someone that Allie, my wife, grew up with, put out a social media post talking about that park and how, well, I haven't been there in 20 years, so I don't care if it gets turned into a golf course. Yeah, the world exists outside of you. That's one of the hardest. I have a 6-year-old. It's hard to teach a 6-year-old the world exists outside of you. You're 40. You should know this by now. Just because you don't go to the park and don't find any value in it, other people still do. So it's sad that we have to say that to 40-year-old human beings, but I'm glad that you guys are doing something cool. That's great.
Thank you. And thank you to Luis for joining us here.
Thanks, Luis. It was a great conversation, man.
So fun
Awesome. Thank you for
to
having
catch up
us.
with you and see what's going on and just hear about some of the stuff that like I didn't know was going on at Wynwood, and just like how much of like that La Rubia like really took hold, and what you guys created down there.
A juggernaut.
Yeah, really is. But yeah,
Thanks,
man,
guys. Appreciate
thank
you
so
guys
much.
having me. Thank you so much.
another big thanks to Luis for joining us. It was great to catch up, and hopefully don't have as long of a time in between talking with him as I have recently. Thank you to all of you for joining us, and for those of you that keep on coming back and listening to the show. We couldn't do it without you. I mean, we could, but why would we? If you would like to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways that you can do that. You can go to our website, unitedwedrink.com. Check out the Brands We Love page. We have some links to awesome brands on there where you can buy stuff. And if you buy stuff through those links, we get a little kickback from it. Stuff such as trade coffee, made in cookware, and other amazing things. If you want to buy a shirt, button, sticker, tote, or something like that, we have our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store, where you can get that. Otherwise, we'll be back in a couple weeks with another new episode. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. Thank you to Luis, and take care. Cheers.